Good morning, everyone. My name is Gentry, and we're outside today because I haven't seen the sun for 3 weeks, ever since the release of Baldur's Gate. Now, Baldur's Gate is an amazing game. I'm having so much fun with it. It's taken over my life a little bit. I've played hundreds of hours, but those hundreds of hours have taught me things, and it's inspired me in ways where it's like, okay, these 5 things are things that I want to put into my D&D game. So that's what we're going to talk about. A couple things. I want to be very clear. Not everything in Baldur's Gate would be good in your home D&D game. It is a video game. The game is able to move very quickly compared to your home D&D game because each person at your table has to make their own decisions versus you in the game, you just make all the decisions. It does all the math calculations for you. It is really fun in that regard, but it's a video game. It can't translate perfectly. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there's not going to be really any spoilers in this video, but if you're super worried about any kind of spoilers at all, maybe skip this one, come back to it later, but we're not going to talk about any kind of story stuff, just a few mechanical things. Number 1, and this is something that you'll hear from many DMs often, but it's just something I'm realizing more with Baldur's Gate, is verticality. Encounter design in Baldur's Gate was made so intentionally, especially the combat encounters. You can tell that somebody who was in charge of maps made each encounter, because not only are there great obstacles that you need to get around, but also there are different levels to each encounter where it's like, okay, this is the low level, this is the mid level, this is the high level, this is where you can get cover, this is where you're out in the open, or this is where you need to be. It's really designed for movement, which is really important and something that I lack in my D&D games. I've always seen those builds online where somebody's like, I'm a Tabaxi Monk rogue and I have 500 feet of movement per round. And I'm like, sure, but what's the point? Why have 500 feet of movement per round? But in Baldur's Gate, I'm always like, I wish I had 10 more feet of movement, or, oh, I'm just so close to hitting this enemy. I can't tell you how many times where my barbarian has just had to like not have a turn because they can't move in close enough. They can't move fast enough or far enough, or I'll have to prepare. I'll have to cast haste on the barbarian and drink a potion of speed so I can get from one side of the map all the way to the other and be able to hit all of my enemy targets. Now, that's not something I necessarily recommend for D&D. It's not about like edging your players out of movement space and making it so they're ineffective, but because it's such a dynamic landscape, it requires a lot more thought instead of just like an open battlefield with a few spots of cover, which is unfortunately what I tend to do. Number 2, weapon-specific attacks. Now, this is something that I've actually implemented in my game before slightly. There's this great supplement called Beyond Damage Dice. I'll link it in the description below. But essentially what it does is it says, hey, there's a reason that you have a long sword over a short sword, or there's a reason that you have a whip instead of a dagger. Each one of these weapons has special moves. So for instance, like whip, you might be able to disarm somebody. Dagger, you might be able to use your reaction as an extra attack on your turn. I don't remember exactly what they all are, but that's something that Baldur's Gate implements really well too. Is you have your plunging attack, which has been super helpful for my barbarian when they're struggling with movement. They'll do this plunging attack and be able to move an extra like 10 or 15 feet. Granted, it doesn't do as much as one of my reckless attacks, but I'm willing to sacrifice one of my attacks in order to get that movement to get onto the enemy. I think it also makes your weapon choice just a little bit more meaningful. Sometimes there's the question of like, well, I envisioned this character in my head at the beginning of the game as a character who always has 2 short swords in their hands. But as we're playing along, well, it just makes sense that they ditch that look and have 2 long swords instead and take a feat so I can do that because, well, that just makes more sense and I do more damage that way. Number 3 are bonus actions. There are several bonus actions that you can do in Baldur's Gate that you can't do in D&D. And those specifically are you can dip your weapon, you can jump, and you can shove. Now, typically shove is reserved for an attack action. So you have to use one of your attacks or your only attack if you only get one to shove an enemy over. But I like the fact that it's a bonus action. You can get advantage on an attack, you have the enemy's movement, they can do the same to you as well. So that's important to know. It might feel unbalanced, and perhaps it is. I'd have to play around with it a little bit, but you have to remember, anything that the players can do, the enemies can do as well, and most of my enemies don't have lots of great bonus action economy, so shoving wouldn't be a bad option for them either. You can dip your weapon, which makes poisons way more viable. I find that I hand out poisons, or I let players harvest certain beasts or animals or monsters to gather poisons or liquids from these animals that might be more useful in their campaign. But when it comes down to it, they almost never use those poisons and things like that because, well, you have to remember, okay, I've got to dip my arrows before we start this fight, or I've got to dip my sword before this fight because that takes an action. No, it's just a bonus action. You don't have anything for your bonus action this turn, you can dip. Lastly, jump. This, I feel like, makes martial characters a lot more useful and, again, extends that range of movement because the way that Baldur's Gate handles it is you have to have 10 feet of movement, and if you have 10 feet of movement, then you can jump, and jumping is tied to your strength. I think it's 3 times your strength modifier, so weaker characters might only be able to jump a few feet versus barbarians can jump over 10, 15 feet sometimes. Now, granted, though, that takes your bonus action. So, for instance, my barbarian struggles with the thing. By the way, my barbarian's Karlach, in case you didn't know. Love Karlach. I won't say anything more about it. No spoilers. Karlach's great, though. But she has Great Weapon Master, and if I use my jump, then I can't use my Great Weapon Master attack typically as well. So, something to consider. It is perhaps an empowering thing, but I don't think that it's a broken thing, in my opinion. Next, I want to talk about the unstoppable condition. Now, this is something for sure more on the DM side of things, but it's a really good solution to a problem that I have with a lot of encounters. And that is, it feels like either you're on the player's clock or you're on the DM's clock. And what I mean by that is, like, if the players want to nuke the big bad, unless you're going to get a little cheesy as a DM, big bad is done in 1 turn or 2 turns or whatever, tops, because players can dish out so much damage. I mean, especially when they coordinate, especially when they prepare, and especially at higher levels. Let's say you don't want that to happen as a DM. Well, you might make something cheesy where it's like, oh, and I say cheesy, I say cheesy in an endearing way, DMs. I'm a DM myself, but you'll be like, oh, well, you only got through 1 of their health pools and they have 3. Or you'll say something like, or you won't even say anything and you'll just kind of like maybe forget to write down a couple of attacks that players are hitting off, or add 100 more health because you weren't prepared for this. What the unstoppable condition does is it requires some planning, but it also is surmountable by the players. So the unstoppable condition means that an attack must be landed and it knocks them down 1 peg on this, let's say, called a ladder. So if an enemy has unstoppable 3, that means 3 successful attacks must be landed against them before they start taking damage into their health pools. This is great because if a player does not focus down an enemy, well, then they're going to, that powerful enemy is going to last longer in the fight. But players can choose to focus down that enemy and coordinate better. Let's say there is a warlock who has many eldritch blasts, and they just knock down those unstoppable conditions and allow the barbarian to come in and start reckless attacking. Or maybe there's a fighter who has a bunch of attacks, and they can knock down all those unstoppables and allow the wizard to come in and fireball. It is allowing players the agency of saying, okay, how do you want to take on this challenge? But it's also elongating the amount of time that that enemy is on the battlefield. And sometimes that's what you want, because sometimes you don't want the big bad to be taken out in literally 1 attack or something like that. That can be kind of a hard thing. I wouldn't give the unstoppable condition on earlier levels, let's say before level 7 for D&D players, and I probably wouldn't give it to many different people. I would just give it to the big bads of the fight. If there's 1 or 2 or 3, which is typically how it is in Baldur's Gate as well. It's also important to know, I would tell the players that you're using the unstoppable condition before they start wasting a bunch of resources, because that's not fun. It's just like in Baldur's Gate. I can see an enemy has unstoppable, and I can plan around that. It's not telling me, it's not invisible, it's not hiding that information from me, making me waste all of my best spells and attacks so that then I go, great, well now I'm actually going to be doing damage to its health. Okay, and the last one. And this is going to be one that's going to be like, no duh, or I've heard this before, but I found it to be really inspiring from Baldur's Gate. And that is making the players the main characters of your story. Now, this is something that I've definitely done, or I've tried to do, but the way that Baldur's Gate handles it It balances really well. And don't worry, there's not going to be any spoilers here. But what I will say is that each player not only has their unique and powerful character arcs, their character arcs are also deeply tied into the main story quest line in one way or another. Whether that be a loose connection where at the end of their story arc, they now have a powerful ally in the final encounter of the game, or whether that's like, oh no, it's directly tied to. There are people involved throughout their story that deeply impact the main storyline. And their individual encounters and storylines are really long and powerful and done well as well. And it's something that I want to work on better as a DM. And I think it's most important for sandbox adventures. If you're playing a main story, let's say Lost Mines of Phandelver, or you're playing, the Dragons of Icespire Peak, sure, your players might not have the deepest connections into that game. But if you're playing a sandbox game, I think it's important to try to weave everybody together into this main storyline. But I'm honestly really curious, have you been playing Baldur's Gate? And if you have, what are some things that you want to take from that game and implement into your home D&D game? Do you think the tips that I gave you today were helpful? Or are you like, no way, I would never do any of those things. That is just absolute bonkers madness. Crazy. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, then please leave a like, hit subscribe. I put out new videos on the reg, usually D&D content, but who knows what could happen in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Good luck out there, adventurer.